There's no doubt.
Yeah, but my bald spot and back of my white head.
And
There was another meeting in here that required more tables, and so I don't think it got put back exactly where it was. This is a great angle.
There goes my election.
I'm gonna go ahead and test. Morning.
I have 10 o'clock. I'm going to call the Isabella County Board of Commissioners Finance Administration Committee meeting to order. This is a hybrid meeting, which means it's both in person and electronic. Approval of the agenda. Commissioner Jelazinski, anything on the agenda you'd like to see added, deleted, or whatever?
Nope, agenda's just fine.
I have nothing further either, so I'll call to the public. First thing, anybody want to speak? All right, anything on the Birch? Anything on?
There is not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we will close call the public and next consider approving 2022 October apportionment report as presented by the Equalization Department.
Do not see the equalization department. Do you, there's really nothing
No.
to talk about because I think the
Well,
report generally comes at the October, at the
Right.
second October meeting.
And
So.
if we say no to this, good luck to us.
And yes, and the units that fall under. Yes,
So
correct.
they can't vote me out of office, but they could take the rest of them. Okay, so Jerry, you want to make that motion then?
I'll move consideration of the 2022 October apportionment report to the work session next Tuesday.
Okay, I'll support that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Okay, next up, the prime contract change order 0002.
This is a big one, gentlemen. And before you get too excited about the amount of the change order, I have passed out the project budget. So if you run, I do have an extra here if you'd like one. If you look down the first page, about halfway down, you'll see in dark blue that same $43,109,552. So that is not the total project budget. That is the amount of the change order for Clark Construction. So that is for all construction services, not just their construction management, but all of the, the poly jail, all of the building, all of the materials, all of the contracts to build the facility. Everything included. What is not included, you will see are the things below that blue bar, all of the things that the county is picking up, if you will. Now, the county's already picked up some of that. You'll notice 2.6 in architect and design fees, 2.6 million. We have already paid most of that to integrated architecture. We've paid over $2 million to the architects at this point. The land purchase you'll see on there and associated expenses with the land, we've already paid that. It's not going to have to be paid again. If you follow to the next page and flip the first page, you'll see the total project budget with those county costs on top of the Clark costs is just over 48 million. Okay. You'll see Clark Construction put on this budget the 41.5 that we're getting from USDA, and that leaves essentially a $6.5 million overage on the project budget. It gets really confusing because, as I've mentioned, some of those costs are already paid, but some of those costs are already paid with the bond anticipation note, which is included in the 41.5 million. It's not, that 6 million we borrowed from Isabella Bank to front some of these expenditures as a first order of business. When the $41.5 million bond is let, that $6 million is paid back. The good news is we do have a couple million of that yet unspent. So as far as cash goes, we do still have some of that towards the $43 million Clark Construction contract price. The next good news is that some of those monies have already been paid to Clark Construction. As you know, they've been helping us all along. we've paid almost $500,000 to Clark Construction out of their costs. So really, I just wanted to be clear on all of that is combined, because I know at least one commissioner came in, today thinking, oh, great, we're under, we've got it down from the $46 million that the project was budgeted, or that it costed out in April. When Clark Construction costed that out in April, that was not necessarily including all of those soft costs below. It didn't include escalating factors for the contractors. When we bid that out in April, the contractor said, here's our price today, right? So Clark Construction's been working with us. They've been working with the contractors to try and bring those costs down. We thought that was a better strategy than putting the thing back out for bid. We felt that a 46 million would then become a 50 million project, and so on. So Clark Construction's been working really hard with the sheriff and his team. They've identified about $1.4 million in additional items that could be removed from the construction costs. These are swapping out materials for maybe less costly materials, or just being smarter about the project. It's lent itself to a better project, but unfortunately all those efforts from sheriff and his staff seem to get eaten up with these cost escalations. So as the budget stands that Clark has made and wants to move forward is 48 million, just over 43 million to them. The urgency on Clark's part, and the reason this is coming forward in the second meeting of October right now, is because Clark Construction needs to bind those contracts with the subs, with the trade vendors. They need to enter these contracts so that supplies can get ordered because of our supply chain issues. They feel like if they don't bind these contracts by the beginning of December, then it's kind of back to the drawing board with price, right? They'll have to bid it back out, get new prices, not start from square one, but kind of in the bidding process, they'll be back to square one. And I do want to say Clark Construction and Integrated Architecture they will be present at the October 18th meeting. They will speak to this better than I can, but for purposes of the committee, I just wanted to be here to walk you through this myself without them. So those are the high level numbers. $48 million project. We've spent about 3.6 million already. So that's about a $44.5 million still to go. We do have some contingencies into these budgets. You'll notice there's about a $500,000 contingency on the county's part that's into the budget, and about 750,000 that's in there for Clark Construction. I'm told that those are industry standard, of course, and it's a more efficient way of doing business than coming back to the board each time that there's a change. But I have set the expectation that they will be coming back to the board for certain changes, of course. Basically, that leaves just over 43 million that we will need in cash once we have the USDA loan and pay back the bond anticipation note. We do have the couple $1 million left from the bond anticipation note and the monies that the board has committed of fund balance to the tune of almost 5.8 million between what this board is committed and the 2.6 left in cash to pay towards the bond anticipation note, still needing cash of about 1.8 million. Cash over the next couple of years to get the project done. And we've got that in our fund balance, right? We've got that in other unassigned fund balance, but I want you to understand, and we'll look at forecasts in a moment when we get to that point on the agenda where that puts us. So Sheriff has been very vocal about his ask of governments higher up than ours for money towards this project. Sheriff's been anxiously awaiting this budget that Clark put out last week to see, you know, where are we at? Sheriff didn't want to go and ask for 11 million like we thought we were over a few months ago, right? He needed this budget to accompany his ask. So he knows now that ask is 6.5 million and he's asking. So we're very hopeful, as you know. Sheriff's been very successful in some of his past asks. So we hope certainly he'll be successful again, but certainly all he can do is ask, and he's been asking. I know as I work with our financial advisor at Baker Tilly and bond counsel at Dickinson Wright, they keep telling me the county's done the right thing. You've made the right choice in going with USDA. On the open market, they're now at 5% for a 30-year bond. Remember, with USDA, we've got a 40-year locked in at 2 1/8. At current USDA prices, interest rates, they're now at 3 1/4, and it is just over about $12.5 million additional costs to finance the project at today's USDA rates versus what we're locked in at. If they were to go up to a 4%, we're looking at about $22 million extra. I mean, it's so the finance folks are telling us, and I think what we already know, if we can hang on to that USDA loan, we need to. My understanding from USDA, we do have the 365 days limit on that interest rate that will expire April 1st of 2023 in our current letter of obligation from USDA. My understanding from them is that they will work with us on that as long as we're working towards a viable project. If we scrap 25% of the project or more, then USDA basically withdraws the loan off the table. That 25% is based off of the 46 million that was priced out in April. Okay, so this value engineering that Sheriff's been doing, we actually had to hold him back because he couldn't bite off too much, right? But I just want you to explain those caveats that are in place there. So I was hoping to be able to come to you today to say, oh, the project's under budget, or we've been able to cut, or oh, here's a new pot of money. That hasn't happened. Ever since January, I've been telling you there's a cliff in the forecast and we're going to fall off a cliff, and that is still there. But I feel like what is different than a year ago is that I think we are forecasting longer. I think we're forecasting out to see that cliff. I think we know the cliff is out there, and I think we're actually planning now to be able to do some things. I know we've talked a little bit about the existing facility, right? We know now that we're going to maintain that facility. We're going to utilize the existing Sally Port that there's nothing wrong with, and then existing statutory office for the sheriff that we don't have to construct. It's already there. And reuse the reusable portions of that building, right? Downsizing it to potentially a lesser amount of beds for some juvenile tenants, perhaps. It would help us maintain a presence in downtown Mount Pleasant for workers or for visitors to the facility. Obviously, that's a few years out, but obviously Sheriff's going to be in the building for a few years. I think that Sheriff's been working very hard on the U.S. Marshals contract to bring in, it sounds like he's already negotiated a higher rate, hopefully bringing in not just more money, but more prisoners, which multiplies that out. We've got the MRF feasibility study that hopefully is going to change things around there. We've got the employees in the insurance committee working to hopefully save us money and go in a direction that can free up some funds. So we've got a lot of these really positive things happening. Something I've been saying since January is that the project has a $35 million budget, right? That's what the forecasting I felt like in January that we could afford. That was a $27 million borrow with $8 million of ARPA thrown at it to get at the 35 million. And in the forecast, we were just building in that $1 million a year payment. That's what it costs to borrow that 27 million. As the project went on and the year went on, we realized we're going to have to borrow the whole 41.5 million to get this done. And that's when we started to build that $1.5 million each year for 40 years into the forecast, so that we could be able to afford it. What I see now, and we'll look at this in the forecast when we get to that point, is Melissa Franquist and I have been working with MERS to say, what if we don't take that 8 million and just hang on to it to make bond payments? What if we send it to MERS? And we've got projections that if we send it 8 million to MERS over the course of the next 10 years, it saves about $11 million in payments, right? Because you're sending that big chunk to them, you're getting that unfunded accrued liability paid down. So it's not found money, but it's a way to make our money go longer. I know that Treasurer Pickens had talked about doing this years ago, and it didn't happen. He'll still tell you it's a good thing to do today. I think it's time maybe that we listen to some of those things that your leadership in the county is trying to tell us. I think that our money can go further that way. So we prepared forecasts a couple different ways. One where we just hold on to that 8 million and make payments, and one where we send it to MERS and actually generate some savings. On top of that, there's, as both of you commissioners know, there's been some county leadership meeting to determine this influx of new revenue that we need. How could that come to the county? And there's a large sector of your leadership that is on board with this. And I think we'll definitely see this through. But it's certainly an unknown. It's not the knowns we're scared of. We know that building can't serve as our correctional facility going forward. We know that, and we're not scared of doing something to correct that. It's just that unknown, right? I can show you those bond payments on the forecast. I can tell you about these things that we're doing, but to say today I can show you on paper that we can afford this for 40 years, I can't. I can just tell you that we're forecasting now. We know we can't, so we're putting some plans in place right now that will allow us to afford it going forward. I can't magically make it work on paper. I won't. I should say that. I won't magically make it work on paper. It doesn't. We need to do those other things, but we're getting the insurance committee, in place, right? You've set that. They'll start meeting. Hopefully they'll start making a difference. MERS feasibility study is going to be back this month. That'll start making a difference. If we can get that extra money to MERS by the end of this calendar year, it will start to affect our MERS annual required payments in fiscal 24. But we have to do it this year to be able to free it up. Otherwise, those payments get locked in. That's a lot of talk. No silver bullets, but a lot of stuff, I think, going on, a lot of momentum right now, headed in the right direction.
Commissioner Jozinski, anything?
So if we adopt this next Tuesday, this is the final contract that we pull the trigger and move forward with.
I think the contract, it'll be in the next section. I think this is the, part, yeah, you're correct. I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize. Yeah. This is the spend,
Yes.
the projected spend. That's me. The contract addendums and everything are the next.
The addendum, the two
that
addendums that
5,
are coming
6,
next
yeah.
are requirements from USDA. After reading our contracts with Clark and with Integrated, the USDA said, well, you need to put some of these things in. So it's easier than redoing the contract, I guess, is to do that addendum. But Commissioner Jazinski, if this is approved next Tuesday, then yes, Clark,
Clark Construction's gonna go out and make commitments to the suppliers and construction and,
yes.
okay. Well, I've had, serious thoughts about whether or not it's a responsible thing to do when we know we don't have the funds right now to pay it, but I don't think we have any other choice. I think we need to move ahead. We need to work hard to come up with the amount deficient. Because we don't really have any other choice. We need to have a county jail, sheriff's office that will serve the residents. I appreciate all the work you've done looking at, the options. And I know I sit on that committee and, it's kind of like, okay, we hope everything goes in the right direction. And I know if something doesn't go in the right direction, it's going to be on administration and the board to make whatever cuts to be able to make those payments. So I'm good with this. Wish it could be a different set of factors, but it's what we have to work with.
I'm going to echo what Commissioner Jazinski said there. Concerns, we all have concerns, so it's not, you mentioned most of them. $48 million. That's a lot of money. And we're taking out a $41.5 million loan to do it. It gets to the point where now, if you don't do this, you scrap the project, and you're going to be looking at that for just band-aids and doing whatever needs to be done. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's the bottom line statement. If this doesn't go, then nothing. It's just not going to happen, because no way should this county board go from a 2.125 to a 3 something, or even a 5 something. That's just see you later, because I don't see interest rates ever coming down. Well, not down, that's not a good statement. So the statement then becomes, okay, you're going to build it. This is going to be the noose around the neck for a while. Okay, you're going to be struggling with this projected year, whatever's on that. Some of the county commissioners probably won't be on the board when you get to your serious years. Okay, so because commissioners sitting now, we've got to make a decision. And I've stated before how comfortable, what is my comfort level going to be on projecting out, as Commissioner Jazinski said, without having the full funds to pay for it. Okay, that being said, you can say that you can never sit here and make a decision if you're worried about what's going to happen in the future. At least this is there. Okay, that's coming. We didn't know 4 years ago that we were going to have COVID. Who thought that was going to happen? Okay, who thought this? Why we've got funds in for COVID-19, we got ARC money, we got the other monies. We didn't anticipate these cost overruns. It basically eats that up and more. So, you're always want to know what's coming, but sometimes you don't know what's coming. Maybe we get, the federal government or sheriff works his magic, and we get grants, and we get all these other things that we haven't factored in. So bottom line, as Commissioner Jazinski said, we need a correctional facility and a new sheriff's department. I mean, new facilities for them. So, and it's the county's task to do that. We are mandated to do that. So while I'm not comfortable in going with that, I mean, I don't think any commissioner is going to be comfortable doing that. I think it's beholden to my vote, in my opinion, right now, to move forward. I really do. I mean, and it's going to be something that's going to be in the county's issues for many years to come. And hopefully it won't be a downward slide. It'll be a positive movement. It's going to, I see no other choice. I mean, I really don't. So again, I'm not comfortable at all with that. I'm not, it's serious discomfort, but at the same time, it's a risk benefit analysis. The benefit of doing this now more than outweighs the risk, I think. So
Well
that's,
said.
that's my statement on it, is you have to do something. And to do nothing and to pull out now, I mean, if I was Sheriff Maine and this happened, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for the sheriff, I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't know if who would want what, that's not gonna be a great position in a couple of years if that happens. I mean, and it's not gonna be a great position for the county if that happens. And there's gonna be some positives come out of that. There's some unknowns. There's some things we can do mental health wise to do stuff to make our facility generate revenue. Again, you don't want to build something and have other places come in. You want to build something that serves your residents in the community, but it's geared towards that's what but at the same time, we have to be conscious of that. So it's a regrettable yes for me on this. Yes, that's my statement. So.
I think securing that USDA loan is a better legacy for the residents of this county than leaving them with a building that still is failing and can't service the
Well,
need.
you're
It's
only,
not-
who knows 5 years from now if it becomes mandated that you have to get those things done, and you can't be grandfathered in, or you can't have, or you start having issues where inmates are being harmed and affected, and what kind of effects is that going to have on us? I mean, now again, the unknowns, but those are high probability unknowns that's going to happen, not, and sooner rather than later, unfortunately. So, yeah, and getting that loan locked in, and if you're going to build a debt percentage, otherwise you just not to do it. So that's my thought on it. I would ask if I could, since I'm chair of this committee, we've got one other commissioner in attendance, and Steve, if you want to pop up here, feel free.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure you're not here just to look at the back of my head. So
No, I'm here to listen to this conversation. It's a very important conversation. Most important conversation we have going on right now is the jail project and this loan. I would say my input or where I stand is that our most important thing we can do as financially is to lock in that loan. And the
I'm
reason
going to stop you real quick. Commissioner Hope is not on the line, correct?
Correct.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
okay, yeah, lock in and move forward with that loan, because that saves our constituents a lot of money in the future, because as I see it, we can't move forward with the current jail that we have. It's going to at one time fail, and then we're going to be in a pit trying to figure out how to do this again. And so we're saving 22 to 12 million by moving forward with this. And then what does that mean? It means we have to roll up our sleeves and we have to figure out how to make this work. And that's part of government business, is trying to figure out how to make everything work. And as I see right now, our current jail does not serve, and I'm talking about the structure, the infrastructure, does not really serve Isabella County constituents. The staff and the sheriff have been bent over backwards to do what they can, but we're not at 2022 standards by any stretch of the means. And so we really need to move forward with this project. And so, passing this, I think, and making sure that we, April 1st, have locked in that loan is probably the most important thing the Board of Commissioners can do at this stage. And then, fortunately, 80% of 90%, I don't know, the work is the sheriffs and Nicole Frost to make sure that we can have a balanced budget and move forward this. And I think we can make this work. because we know, when you know something is in the future and you work towards it, it can happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Commissioner Jalazinski, you have anything more to add?
I don't.
Then I will make a motion to consider approving the prime contract change order number 0002 agreement with the construction company in an amount not to exceed $43,109,552 and authorize the board chairperson to sign.
I will second that motion.
Like how they came up with 00, not change or anything like that. So we got it down to 0 on the change side of it.
What's pennies?
Yeah, exactly. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It will go forward to the board chairperson, but actually, we're going to discuss this in work session, I believe, correct?
Yes, and as I said, Clark Construction representatives and Integrated Architecture will be in attendance.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Swain.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Me to speak, Chair?
Yeah, I figured you'd get your comment in public comment, so I just moved you forward. So there you go. There you go. Okay, next up, the attachments.
Yeah, so as I stated earlier, these are just the requirements that USDA, the language that USDA wanted in the contracts already executed between the county and Clark Construction for construction manager services, and between the county and Integrated Architecture for architecture and engineering services on the project. So no dollar amounts associated with these, except for in the construction manager document, you'll see in Article 11, we do have the substantial completion date of December 5th, 2024.
I saw
You
that.
can believe that. And the next section 11.6, we are negotiating with Clark Construction on what an amount for liquidated damages per day would be if we go beyond that December 5th, 2024 date. USDA will not allow the liquidated damages to be 0, and Clark Construction contract really was written with no liquidated damages in mind, and so I am working to negotiate that amount with them. Right now, it looks like we're in the neighborhood of $300 to $400 a day that we'll be inserting in there. That will be inserted before this goes out in the packet on Friday. Just to let you know that TBD in section 11.6 will be filled in. On the attachment to the AIAB 133 document, this is with the architect. There are 3 spots where we have to fill in a number for the final sets of construction drawings that the architect will provide to the county. We're just working through that number as far as who all needs it. We know all the subs will need drawings, you know, all the trades folks. And so we're just working through what is that number of sets of drawings. So that's the only thing that still needs to be entered into those agreements. Both agreements have been through legal counsel, and legal counsel approves them as to form and says that, you know, basically they just set out the parameters for the grant funding through USDA. Legal is okay with both documents.
Commissioner Jalazinski, anything on this?
You don't have anything?
The only thing I would ask Nicole is if we can, for the work session, or for our agenda, could we have the existing agreement so we can have this to read along with the existing? Because I know we have Commissioner Terry, I'm drawing a blank on it. Hutchinson, geez.
Who would never have been privy to the
Yeah,
original.
so if we can get that, that would help me too, comparing and contrasting everything.
Absolutely.
Just so I have it, so it makes it an easier read, so we know we're getting and adding it. And you supplement that along with this, basically, we have the current up-to-date contract / cost data. And we're current, and we know exactly what we have in front of us. So I think that would be very helpful if we had that provided to us.
Perfect. So Jessica, I will ask that you include that with the packet, even if it's too big to attach, then at least a link to it. I can't remember I remember some of those contracts were so big that we had to link to them. So Jessica will make sure that you have access to that in your packet.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That and or, if commissioners want, sometimes for myself, it's easier for me to have paper. And look, I mean, we can print them, but if we'd like, if we could make a request for you to print and for us to grab, like I don't know when you can print it off. I will be gone out of town until Monday, so mine isn't that necessary. I just like to have, even going forward, if we had, so you could probably bring it to the meeting.
Just have a couple copies.
I actually have, I would request that we have it for
Okay.
all board members, so we have it for our, even though I'm gonna be on it 2.5 months, it's still be a nice reference document.
Yes, it will. Yes.
So,
That's a good point.
so, but again, I
We'll
don't,
have a couple years to work with the document, so.
I don't, I have 2.5 months. So, yeah, okay,
Do you want me to make this motion?
go right ahead. Thank you.
I'll move that we take the attachment to AIA document A133-2009 with Clark Construction and the attachment to AIAB 133 2014 with integrated architecture for the county, for the Isabella County Sheriff Office and Correctional Facility, and move that to the work session next Tuesday.
I'll support that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, the same, it will go forward. All right, next up, the fiscal year 2022 fourth quarter financial report as presented.
Okay, so this will be fiscal year end then, so we'd love to see all 100% plus, but that's not how taxes work for us every year. And just like we say in the beginning, the first couple quarterly reports, don't be nervous that taxes are so low. We still say that at this point, even though the summer taxes are due, we do always have a number of those that are purchased delinquent next March, and they will still keep coming in until next March also. We've divvied out the wind turbine revenue as we've done the last 2 years now from the tax revenue for this report. So you can see the actual wind turbine revenue brought in fiscal 22 was 2.235250. That $2.2 million number should look very familiar to you because that's the same amount that the board committed last Tuesday in turbine revenue towards the correctional facility project. Licenses and permits are a little below the amended budget, but still we're still trickling in. You can see we're actually up from what the original budget had thought though. So we're actually performing pretty well there from those COVID days of what's going on, what are we doing? There was no trend during COVID, so it was kind of hard to know what to budget, but you can see those are building back up now. Federal and state revenues, we are still getting some of those in. Just so the commissioners understand, even though our fiscal year ends September 30, we pretty much hold things open until the end of November for revenues that come in that are attributed to fiscal 22. We can still book them back. Also expenditures, we want to get those bills in by the end of November so we can pull those expenditures in. So just a little bit of revenue yet forthcoming. Charges for services, again, that's another one where the original budget, we kind of had budgeted lower, amended budget was up, and the actuals we're even performing better than that. So we're actually coming back for charges for services. We're coming back up. Fines and forfeitures, lagging a little bit. I think we amended the budget up after we had a large forfeiture, and maybe we're trailing behind now a little bit. So we'll pay attention to that when everything is said and done. Interest and rents, we're right on target. Other revenue, we still have a little bit of revenue to come in. Melissa, I'm drawing a blank on what that might be. That's not the transfer in from other.
Workers' comp dividend, we actually
Okay.
received it, it's just not moving back.
Okay, we just did receive it.
110,000.
Okay, so we'll actually be over budget in that revenue line. So I don't know if you heard that, we did just receive a workers' comp dividend check. So that will go in that line. It just hasn't been booked yet, but so we'll be actually
Will that be,
over 100%.
will that be amended for the work session or for the board meeting or not?
Will we be able to amend this quarterly report to reflect that for Tuesdays?
I mean, we put preliminary on this because even as of
Gotcha.
last week when this.
Yeah,
was-
let's wait. Let's wait.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Usually we doing that. Yeah, let's not.
A
Yeah.
lot of revenue that's still coming in. There's a lot of, I know this report includes our first batch of accounts payable that it all belong to fiscal year 22. But every week we're gonna have EFTs coming in that all pertain to a lot that pertain to 22. So I could do it every day entries to push them back, so we can,
No,
but it's.
forget it. That was just a thought that should not have escaped my lips. Again, I'm not gonna stop here. I'll let you continue, but this to me, this is the second most best report on these. When we do the quarterlies, this is the second one that I like to see. The first one, when I see the word final, that way it'll give us a
Yeah.
full snapshot, because that's what's before. The other stuff's kind of gives, it's all nice window dressing and it kind of gives you kind of a roadmap to kind of gauge where you're at. But we're still sitting at the big dollar one, 71.57%, not in. Again, as you said, trickle in. So I guess my question is going to be, where do you anticipate in projections that number going? Is it going to be at 100%? Do you have any feel if that's going to be 100% hitting the budget spot on, or is it going to be 5% lower than the budget, 5% above the budget, or any?
Sure.
Because that obviously affects it. I'm going to say $5 million revenue shortfall.
For taxes, I know on average, we do for audit, it's a big calculation we do every year. We see what's come in 60 days after, we push it back, and on average, especially since the turbines, about 4.2 to 4.3. So that 4.3 just in taxes, it could, I would range from 4 to 4.2. That should come in very close to the 100% of taxes of what we budget, especially since our budget is based off of a lot of Pete's numbers. I feel like those are really close. So,
Okay.
So that number and kind of what the other ones, to kind of give a heads up, like the federal and state, I know on average about 400,000 every year gets pushed back to fiscal year 22. CRPs, any pieces of revenue sharing, final payments on those big ones that come in, those all get pushed back. So just to kind of give an idea of what's still yet to come for two of those bigger ones, the ones that are the ones that are most negative there.
Okay.
I think especially for taxes, we get.
So I'm still not supposed to panic at $5 million.
You're still not supposed to panic because we use, one of the greatest thing you said was we use equalization numbers, right? We use the numbers that equalization says, these are the taxes that you should collect. The treasurer uses those same numbers to buy the delinquents in March, right? So if we've used equalization numbers, then theoretically, when the treasurer buys those delinquents, he will make us whole in that line. If we've been creative budgeters, you will know, because we'll be in trouble. But if we've followed equalization, then we should, and conservative, which we like to be in budgeting, we should see 100 or 1% in that line, hopefully.
Conservatively transparent.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, that's a good
I like
thing.
that.
You want to be, you can hide, as I mentioned in meetings in the past, you can make numbers speak any which way you want, but the bottom line is, when you go to pay your bills, can you pay your bills? And, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're doing great. Big story, end of the day. Total revenues were at 80%, but we're not scared because a lot of that is in taxes. We know that will come. everything else, if you look at these expenditures, we really are falling well under total. There's not one department that is over 100%. And contingency, we never touched, still all there. Kudos to general government being 86%. Now, I did mention bills still coming through the end of November that are attributed to fiscal 22 do get pushed back. But as of this report, we're still 2.3 million shy. To your point, Commissioner Horton, I know you mentioned in the budget process, aren't we always under? Don't we always come on, isn't, so there is a little meat on the bone. We're not so comfortable about that to take that at budget time, but I think that does show you that we do try to budget conservatively, and our department heads and electeds do a fantastic job of staying inside their operating budgets.
Well, you just look at, just looking at the budget, I'm on the whatever page, second page. We had, and I'm not picking on the sheriff at all, it's positive, I think, actually, when I get this out. You look at our public safety budget, I don't know which one part we added to, was under the road patrol, was under the sheriff's department. We had originally budgeted 3.7, and we increased that to 3.8 with our budget amount, probably to do with gasoline and charges like that. Well, now we're still sitting at a positive $314,000. So, that's what I mean by you get that acute crunch, but in the net result of the budget forecasting, we're pretty close. And again, with gas coming in, it's probably not all in yet. That's probably a big hit, along with wages and everything. That's probably all in. But yeah, it's just, it goes to show that, you budget, you panic, not panic, that's not a good term, stop that term. But you do have that acute feel, and that there's cash flow instances and things like that, which we've gone through last year we went through the cash flow crunch. This year, thank goodness we didn't have to do that. It's a moving document.
Very much so.
You probably spend a lot of time with your desk looking at that, numbers. You got accountants, you got people doing all this, and that's the unknown people don't see. You can always see the parks, you can always see the sheriff departments, you can always see the MERT people going around, but you don't see these things, and no one sees those. And a lot of us don't like to look at this stuff, but that's I think truly this is the big role of the county commissioners. Is, we all have our little pet things that we like to get involved in. I know Commissioner Jelzinski's big time on the parks, and he's got all that knowledge, and he likes his fiscal stuff too, and so do I. And I think that's our most important role as commissioners, is make sure that we have very highly respected and competent people doing stuff like this. The other stuff you can see, the parks are down, you can know who to blame. Sran, what the heck's going on here? But yeah, so I think that, like I said, these tools we've come a long way in the 10 years that I've been on the board. Certainly the last 6, and certainly this year. We've come a long way in reporting and reports. And make it very, very transparent and easy to understand. So thank you. Okay.
You are welcome.
Continue.
You are welcome.
So-
Proud to be carrying the torch on that. And I'm glad that these reports give you what you need to go and tell the story of what's happening. General fund's looking great. Yes,
I
sir.
will notice that the Board of Commissioners has spent the most of its budget, even though we're small dollars, but we are still under budget.
Yes. That's what happens though, those small dollar departments, so they can look overspent or mostly spent real quick, but yeah, you're not. Still doing good. The last page of that report does show some of our major funds outside of general fund. And they are all doing really, really, really well. As far as Parks and Recreation, over 113% revenue received, 83% spent. Friend of the Court is just under 80% revenue, which is is a lag of, we do get reimbursement from the state for those expenditures. So you'll see their expenditures of about 88%. We're still waiting on a little reimbursement for those. Commission on Aging, similar to parks, their revenues are right up there about 100%, and expenditures are under 77%. Child Care Fund revenues are performing really well at 88%. Expenses, as you've heard Court Administrator Curtis talk about, are very low, mostly because we're not able to place youth right now. So 64% of expenditures. Central Dispatch is a little backwards. Their revenues are only at 77%, but remember, they get that surcharge off the phone bills. That revenue always lags. We are not concerned about that at all. Happy to report they are just over 90% spent. Same for inspections, just over 90% expenditures and well over 100% for revenues. Recycling, big fun story, 112% revenues for the MRF, and under budget for their expenditures as of right now. So hopefully they hold that line.
That should be an asterisk, though, recycle, correct?
Because we send over, yes.
450, wasn't it? Or how much was it this year?
In the
2022.
current budget, 400
400.
even in the current budget, yes.
So there's still 220 under roughly. So,
Mhm.
okay.
But
That's
we're
like-
soon to
that's
have a plan for that.
Put an asterisk on that one. Put an asterisk on that term. So, okay.
I will tell you, I just spent a couple days at the Michigan Recycling Coalition Conference with Director of the MRF, Jake Borton. And we got to hear from a couple of counties who have recently undergone some retooling, and Marquette County specifically, their solid waste authority was there to talk about their recent retool from dual stream to single stream and how it worked for them. And a plethora of people there from the state, and talking about all the money that's now available for recycling infrastructure. So I'm really thrilled that we are poised to maybe do something with those monies. Any questions about the quarterly?
No, Jerry, Commissioner Jelzinski, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
I don't either. All right, I'll make a motion. Consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2022 fourth quarter financial report as presented.
I will second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It will go for next up the 10-year financial forecast update.
Okay, so I remember there's a cliff, and I've not been shy to tell you there's a cliff. So this 10-year forecast basically is, you'll see in the 2023 column, you'll see down below there's $8 million that shows up there of ARPA money, basically keeping that in fund balance and making payments out of that 8 million. That was kind of our current plan, right? That we needed 8 million of ARPA. We would recognize that in our current fiscal 23 year. Sorry, I thought someone was whistling. It's the table. What am I?
But if we use that fund for MERS, then that's going to change the calculation of all these. So
That is correct. So, and no, without further ado, let me send this out, because bottom line, it doesn't look like it changes much, but let me tell you what the difference is. So on this one I just handed out, you don't see that 8 million down below, because this projects that we've sent the 8 million to MERS. And do you see in the expenditures where that added MERS payment on this big sheet? We actually added MERS payment because we know that's going to be going up. But on this small one where we use the 8 million to go to ARPA, that shows you that over the course of those next 9 years, it's over 11, it's about $11 million that we save in MERS payments. So even though that 8 million wouldn't be in our fund balance to make bond payments, it would serve to free up $11 million of general fund money throughout the forecast to be able to make bond payments with. Is basically what this shows you. The difference between these, because you end up at the end of the day, the end of the 10 years, you end up with the same amount of fund balance and it's negative. There's our cliff. So you think, what's the difference? Well, the difference is when we take that 8 million and send it to MERS, the money that's committed to the sheriff's office and correctional facility project gets spent in the next 2 years as cash towards the Clark construction to be able to afford that $43 million contract. If the board approves it, those committed funds that the board has committed will need to be used as cash to pay Clark construction. They're not going to sit in your fund balance to make payments like we thought maybe we could do. They'll have to be used in cash. And so the savings comes from that negative line of the added payment to MERS. That's essentially going to free up monies to be able to afford the bond payment.
My concern, not only concern, the plan projection is with MERS. And I know they've done some stuff with their, what is it called? Not the buffer, but they call it the blend.
Smoothing.
Smoothing, yes, there we go.
Yes.
The terms.
So so we don't get hit with the impact of
Correct.
one volatile year.
My concern is if you look at what's going on right now in the market, and the market is bad, and hopefully it will bounce back. But the problem with doing, again, projecting, we're projecting current with giving historical ways we should be okay. The history has sometimes, if history repeats itself, we're good. But if we go into uncharted territory, that MERS investment could potentially add costs to us instead of decrease our costs if we don't get the anticipated rate of return that we anticipate. So that's my concern again. And I don't know how you can plan on that. I mean, other than to go with what you have now is looking at historical factors and everything. And again, it's all about budgeting, I'm in fully support of what you're doing. I'm just stating that let's just be conscious of what's that the possibility that MERS blend or smooth MERS could be smooth, but push whatever. And therefore adding our cost to make everyone whole again on the investments, but hopefully not. I mean, I'm looking at retirement one day and that puppy better start going back up. Otherwise I'm going to be doing a lot of estate planning more than I want to. So anyway, so
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Commissioner. And the only thing I can say to that really is, what if MERS has a bad year and we don't send additional funds to MERS, right? Because that has a direct impact on our assets, direct impact on our unfunded accrued liability, and a direct impact on what our payments are going to do.
Right.
It's like that adage of, what if we train our employees and they leave? But if you don't train them, and they stay,
100%,
right? That's worse.
Because
So
the glass half full comment, I gave the glass half empty, the glass half full comment could be, well, yeah, but what if we rebound and it just shoots through the ceiling? All of a sudden we got all this money in there and it's gathering, it's buying up stocks, and we're paying it off quicker by paying more money. So again, that's why, you'd mentioned before, if we would have did this 10 years ago, that money could have worked as the market was climbing. But again, with the smoothing that, but hopefully, yeah. So,
and I feel like if we, and obviously MERS is going to come in here and make us all warm and fuzzy about this before the deed is done. But I do feel like sending 8 million to MERS, whatever the number is. I think you're going to save more than that in payments, because if MERS doesn't meet their rate of return, those payments are going up anyway. And I feel like if we don't send them the money, they're going to go up even more, right?
no,
They're gonna explain that a lot better than I can.
no, you explained it right there. It's again, to do nothing is
We've done that. It didn't
To
work.
do nothing, correct. To do nothing is to do nothing, and B, it doesn't work. So, all right, continue. I'm sorry. I did-
So still a cliff. Basically, those forecasts tell you, yes, basically. Using the 8 million to send to MERS allows us to use the committed fund balance as cash rather than saving it for payments that we could actually afford to get the project done real time over the next couple of years.
Well, here's again,
It's still a cliff.
Right, here's
So
the-
it still shows we need that influx of additional revenue down the line.
right, and here's another thing when you look at forecasts, and I think this is a good thing, is that now you've locked in at $48 million. We're gonna do $48 million. Now you focus on, all right, how am I gonna pay that thing? And but also you look for every little grant, you look for every little support. You go to a meeting and you run into a legislator, you go, Congressman Molinar comes around, whoever's gonna, 10 years down the road, he leaves, there's the senators go around, we meet Debbie Stabenow, Gary Peters, and we say, hey, you got any monies for you got any money for we're out 42 million still. What can we do here? Sheriff, very good. Accountant's very good. You're very good. That's gonna be the mindset of, just like when you pay off a debt early, you pay off your college loans. If you work hard, I'm gonna pay off my college loans. I'm gonna take, instead of going out for dinner, I'm going to pay off an extra payment on my college loans or something like that. That's what the county is gonna be looking at for X amount of time. I don't think for 40 years, but I think for the next two, you figure out in this area here, that's gonna be your mindset. Everything this county does is gonna be focused on that dollar. Yeah, that's a good thing. It's not a
It is a
bad,
good thing.
it's not, I shouldn't say it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
If we hadn't been forced, if we hadn't done the forecast to know there was a problem, to force our hand to fix it, I don't think you would see some of the positive things you're gonna see coming forward in the next few years. They just wouldn't happen.
And so, and we got a lot of, again, just get it done. Get it done. So I'm sorry, keep going. I don't want to, yes, Commissioner Lozinski.
I have a question on the forecast where we make the payment to MERS. In 2024, capital outlay of $2,554,000 is related to what?
Our 5-year capital plan that we put in the budget this year. It's all reflected in 10-year forecast. Every year, we did our 5-year capital improvement plan.
Oh, so is that the HVAC project is
It's
on the
part of
books
that.
in 24?
I was
Okay.
wondering
That makes
about
sense.
that, because that is another thing that's hanging over our head.
Mhm.
And the only other thing is, all the capital improvements. If we'll be able to keep up, but if we have a plan, hopefully we can stick to it, but wages and fringe benefits. I think having the committee working on the fringe benefits, but certainly we know there's a lot of disagreement in current wages, and we're doing the wage study that could put a hit on this forecast. So
Mhm. And I think proves the point. It's not a correctional facility project problem. That project has not created this budget problem. There's underlying problems with the budget outside of that. And you just nailed a couple big ones. Yes,
which should be an argument to use when we seek additional funds.
that is correct. That's correct.
Anything else?
Oh, there's still a cliff, sir. But at least we know it's there.
I'm gonna grow fingernails so I can grab.
There we go.
Yeah.
We're gonna repel. So, well, no, repel is going down, isn't it? We don't want to go down. Repelling is going down. I don't know, what's it called? Plinkering? No.
Plinko?
I can't remember the things you put in to climb.
Oh,
I've never really done that. I only did that, those little things where they put a rope on you, you try to climb there.
seemed very critical part of the operation.
So, all right, Commissioner Dozinski, is there anything you do? No, that was just forecast. So good.
Go
All
ahead.
right, so we'll move out of that and go into invoice list discussion. didn't see anything on that myself, so,
They didn't either.
okay. Then we will close that part and go to announcements. Anybody for announcement? See no one from the audience, anything on the online thing?
There is no.
Oh, I guess
one at this
announcement, I'm sorry, I
time.
misdid that. Jerry, any announcements you want to make?
No,
Okay, I don't want anything to say, so call the public, now I'll do the proper thing, nothing from the public
There is
there.
no one at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, since we have nothing called the public at 11:04, I will adjourn the meeting.